It's 2 a.m. and the world outside is still. But inside there are things moving, shadows, whispers, and perhaps something worse. The night shift, where you're left alone to face not just the tasks ahead, but the very unknown. Tonight we'll hear 3 stories, true stories, of people who worked alone during their night shifts and encountered something they could never explain. Our first story comes from a security guard named Greg. He worked the graveyard shift in an old office building. This building, with its peeling wallpaper and flickering lights, had an unsettling atmosphere. Greg had worked the night shift for months, and like many before him, he brushed off the rumors of hauntings and strange occurrences. But one night that all changed. It was around 3 a.m. and I was walking the building's hallways as usual. The place was dead quiet, and I'm used to that. It's peaceful, until something happens to break that silence. I was checking the cameras when I noticed something strange. One of the cameras on the 3rd floor had gone fuzzy, and I saw a shadow. It didn't look like a person. It was tall, lanky, and it moved in a way that was unnatural. It just glided across the screen. But here's the thing, there was no one up there. I went up to check it out, but the elevator wasn't working. So I took the stairs. When I reached the 3rd floor, it was freezing cold. I saw nothing out of the ordinary. The lights flickered, but that's nothing new. Then I heard it, soft tapping. Almost like someone was knocking on the door of one of the offices. I turned toward the door where the sound was coming from. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The door was locked, but the tapping continued. I knocked. No answer. I stood there for a few moments, then heard it again. But this time, the tapping was coming from behind me. I ran back to the security office and checked the cameras. I saw myself walking down the hallway, and something behind me. A figure. It was tall and it had no face. Just a dark silhouette. Greg left the building that night. He never came back to work again. But people say the strange tapping still happens. And some nights, when the security cameras are checked, they catch glimpses of that same faceless figure, still roaming the halls. Our second story takes us to a hospital, a place of healing, yes, but also a place where death lingers. Meet Lucy, a janitor working the night shift at a local hospital. The hours are long, the work is grueling, but Lucy was used to it. That is, until one night she noticed something strange. Something that made her question everything she thought she knew. It was 2:30 a.m. and I was cleaning the waiting room on the 1st floor. The hospital was quiet. Too quiet. I kept hearing strange noises coming from the hallway, like someone walking behind me, but when I turned around, nothing. I just chalked it up to exhaustion. But the feeling, it didn't go away. Around 3 a.m., I decided to check on the supply closet on the 3rd floor. The elevator was out of service, so I took the stairs. As I reached the 3rd floor, the temperature dropped. I noticed it was colder than usual, and there was an unnatural silence. The lights flickered, then I heard it, a soft voice. It was faint, but it said my name. I thought I was hearing things, but it called me again. Lucy? This time I froze. I turned around, and there, standing at the end of the hallway, was a figure. But it wasn't fully solid. It looked like a shadow, stretching and warping, as if it was moving in a way that wasn't possible. It stared at me, and it smiled. Lucy couldn't move. Her body refused to respond as the figure started to drift toward her. The smile, it was wide, too wide. And then it was gone. Vanished into thin air. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the 1st floor. The weird part? When I went to report it, no one believed me. The cameras didn't show anything. But I saw it. And I'll never forget that smile. And now we arrive at the final story. A story from Mark, an office worker who stayed late to finish a report. He was the only one in the building, or so he thought. Alone, late at night, his mind starting to play tricks on him, until something much worse than his imagination came to life. I was working on a project at my desk just like any other night. It was almost 1 a.m. when the phone rang. I almost didn't pick it up, but something told me to. There was no one on the other end. Just static. Then I heard something. A voice, my own voice. It said, "Mark, why are you still here?" I hung up. But it didn't stop. The phone kept ringing. I picked it up again, but this time it was worse. I heard my own voice, but it wasn't in the same tone. It was mocking, whispering like a twisted version of me. "Mark, you should have left." I went to leave, but the door wouldn't open. The locks, they jammed. And then the phone rang again, and I swear to God, the voice on the other end said, "I'm still here." Mark was found the next morning, pale, disoriented, and unable to explain what happened. He left the company shortly after, but the phone calls continued. To this day he still hears that mocking voice, but the strangest part? Sometimes he hears it coming from his own phone number. 3 stories of people who were left alone in the dark corners of their workplaces. 3 stories of things that never should have happened but did. The night shift is a time of quiet solitude, but it's also when the unseen walks among us. Remember, next time you're alone, you may not be as alone as you think.